Okay, so hi everybody. This is Christian RPG Gamers. So, um, so for today's video, I want to talk a little bit about I guess about the video game called Unicorn Overlord. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cough, probably with some allergies or something. So I want to put some of the background on here. This specific video, though, to be honest, it's probably gonna. I might have to use a different background. And I had the episode 1 up. The problem with having the audio on it, though, is that it will talk while I'm talking, and I could reduce it down a bunch. I have some other video on here I downloaded too. So I could at least show some of it though. Or here, I guess it will. Again, we can have a little bit on the background for like a minute or two. So I guess I just wanted to say, okay, so I feel like this is an awesome game to start with, to be honest, right? It's really cool. It's like a fire. It's again, it has strong similarities to Fire Emblem, and it kind of sometimes reflects some of like the Kingdom Makers or the Game of Thrones or Witcher Thronebreaker. It has some of that kind of a storytelling, like some art kind of a style like that or whatever, with like the different kingdoms, and you kind of like. I mean, and this is gonna be like a no spoilers. I haven't gotten that far into it, granted, but you know what we call like the whole like kingdoms and like different you got the hero and you try to liberate your kingdom from some villain that came by. And honestly, also just like from a Christian point of view, it reflects a lot of a lot of biblical times too. It has fantasy themes in it. And I mean, there's obviously stuff in here you gotta be. It has a lot of fantasy themes, so you gotta be careful. But it's also really cool. And they do have some naughty stuff. They do have like witchcraft. They have some sorcery, and they have some naughty dark stuff. And they have fantasy versions of their own quote unquote like religion or whatever. All right, so let's see. What other video did I download? Oh, I think I have some footage from Magic the Gathering. Oh, that's what I have. And this is on my phone. I am getting a new tablet. It's just it could be convenient. Here, this is I think when I was playing the Pegasus. Again, I want to use that. I want to use more footage from that. I'll have to find some more, but here I think I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what were all the games I played on here. It might have been my Pegasus deck. It might have been a couple other decks I played a little bit. But we'll see. Well, this should be better. At least it won't be talking. Mixing the talking. Well, hopefully not. Otherwise, I might be making another video. But okay, so I'm gonna try to keep the spoilers light, or it will only be stuff from the very beginning or stuff that's more obvious. So I think, in holiness, if it's within God's will, I think what I'm going to do with the video walkthrough series is I'm just going to make it a no commentary. I've been kind of mulling it over for the channel. And I think I'm just going to do no commentary. Now, I might put some Bible verses or something, kind of go back to the way I used to have it be done. And some is this is just Magic the Gathering background. I mean, I don't know if I won or lost. I mean, this deck is a little bit cracked though. I don't like this Pegasus deck. It's kind of cracked. Now I added some green to it and some you can see. I'm not sure what stage this deck was at. This might be old footage. Hopefully it's not obnoxiously loud, but oh yeah, so yeah, this game, again, I also feel like it's not necessarily fair to hold a game to the same standard of every other game that kind of looks or comes before 100%. I mean, it is its own unique thing. But it's also fair to acknowledge that it's based off of, and it looks and plays, you know, talks and acts a little bit like some other stuff. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like a double-edged sword, right? So yeah, it's its own unique thing, but it draws a lot of inspiration, obviously, from Fire Emblem. It has a little bit of some inspiration, I would say, from The Witcher Tales Thronebreaker. And it kind of does its own thing. It's sort of turn-based, but they use a timer instead of turns. I think this makes it makes it fresh, makes the combat feel a little bit more unique. And I'm not sure I'm gonna go over all the mechanics or anything over, but just some stuff though, at least. But yeah, it uses it. You can, like, a timer starts ticking down whenever your characters would move, or where they would be like waiting to heal or something, or to get more stamina. Like the timer starts to tick down a little bit. And again, obviously, it has a lot of. So yeah, it is. I would say it's like a real-time strategy in a sense, but it is mostly just turn-based, with a little bit of not turn-based. So, you know, overall, I think I'm very happy with this game. Now, I don't know for sure how long I'll go with it or not. I think what I want to do for the channel, yeah, again, like the channel, I want to put the side quests. I might just kind of save them all up, make some videos from them, and eventually I might do some, like, you know, like some little moral life lessons or something from it. Or we'll see what happens with that. And they can be their own little thing. But yeah, again, I feel like, okay, so I want to do no commentary, I think, or I can always just do a touch of commentary here or there, some like write some words down. But I feel like that could be the best choice for the long-term strategy. So I have episode 1 done now. I think I have enough for probably next like 2 or 3 episodes, some footage for it. And it would make it easier. And I do feel like there is some wisdom to not having to always say something. Like, the story can just be the story. I can always just do commentary on my own. I can throw some Bible verses on it. I can go back to the old ways I used to do things, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So what else about this? Okay, so yeah, like, I guess, like, what are some of the Christian? Again, I guess it's just some of my early thoughts. It's probably like an early thoughts kind of video. A little bit of a Christian review too. Okay. So, as I've said earlier, now there is some naughty stuff, and that is something that I would definitely say you got to be careful with. Now, okay, so one other thing. So there is the difficulties of the game. The game offers you basically like a story mode, and like it is like a more like an easy normal, like a normal mode, and then it gets harder. So it gives you less of the access to some of the resources during the battles, make it a little more stressful, or it makes it a little bit easier or a little bit harder to get access to the resources. Personally, I was playing on normal so far, and it seems like it's fine. There is, again, the timer can kind of kick you in the rear end a little bit. I mean, I was playing pretty casually. I think I might put the game on the easy difficulty, just because I personally am a very casual player. I play a lot of games very casually. Like, I'm probably like a semi-competitive, semi-casual person. So it's subjective. I mean, it's also about, like, you know, having fun at the end of the day. It doesn't really change, and like, it doesn't really change anything with this game. It just makes the game a little bit less stressful, which might be wise in its own right. Yeah. And then, like, so, like, this is also what I'm trying to get from one point to the other point, right? I think the goal, okay, also, because if you make the game a little bit easier, from a Christian point of view, this game has the Fire Emblem, yeah, it has lots of Fire Emblem reference. It's very Fire Emblem-like. So, it uses the idea of, like, you know, it has magic, right? and magic is more effective against like heavy units. So okay, so like you get like they have like the big dudes with like the big shields. You know, like I think they call them knights in this game, and they might call them a different name. And they might have some other characters that are just very, very strong defense-wise. They're fairly difficult to get around without using spells. So it has the type advantages. Now you can still technically do it otherwise. So okay, so like again, like here's some mechanics, right? But then also the Christian point of view. We really should not be messing around with stuff like sorcery. I get that it's a fantasy world, and I also can understand, right, that I can understand to some extent that obviously, you know, there's fantasy stuff in a fantasy game, and it's like, you know, I mean I understand that like it's okay sometimes if you can look at it from an objective point of view. You can kind of separate yourself from like the content or whatever. I also would argue that there's no reason as a person of the faith that you have to just like completely like. I mean, again, like I'm pointing like this is the footage from Magic the Gathering, right? I mean, I have like a complete like almost 100% separation from the game. But like an RPG game, when you have the stories and you also have the characters, you become like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or something, right? You become a lot more like, what's the word, like infused or really heavily like linked to your character or to what you do, very, very deeply. Versus like a trading card game, it's a massive separation. So again, like, you know, they have witchcraft, and they also have mages. Now the witchcrafts, they have like the women who are witches. They wear very skimpy outfits, and they're basically just really evil. They use stuff like hexes and dark sorceries and demonic support, you know, curses, and their witches brews and stuff. I personally, it's like I really prefer not to use characters like that. And they also have like a wizard. You get one to start with, and then you can kind of add some more to your team, because you can mix and match your roster of all your stuff together. One of the reasons why I would be open-minded to playing the game on an easier difficulty is I can minimize the use of stuff like magic. And you do have some, like, you know, I guess, like, you know, they have religion that's very strongly, I mean, it's not one for one. There is, like, obviously it's like, you know, kind of pagan, but they have like the Christian faith in the fantasy version of it or whatever. They call, you know, their quote unquote God like the Almighty. It's very, very like strongly Christian inspired, but it's also not Christian at the same time. It's similar, right? Because it's a fantasy world. So I would say that I mean, I personally am open-minded to using some of, like, you know, the holy powers or holy magic or whatever they call it. But I would be very strongly, again, I feel like I definitely be I'm very hostile to the idea of like witchcraft. And like, I mean, I get that there are characters like mages or some wizards. We also should not be using that stuff either, I think, as people of the faith. But you might, in the game might force you to some extent. If the matchups are so hard to get rid of, I might be forced to use a character or two. But again, like, my honest disposition is that if you can at least at the end of the day, if you can minimize the usage of the stuff, that in and of itself could be okay. I mean, I'm not always happy about it, but I could at least understand. So I might have to use like that mage character, or maybe half of one of my classes, or maybe I keep one on reserve or something. I also might be able to use the priests to defeat him too. So again, like that's one big thing about the game, is stuff like sorcery. Again, now, I mean, I get it. I get that it exists within the fan, and all fantasy these days, they love their spells, and they have so many different spells. But we as people of the faith know in holiness that God condemns magic. So, it's a fantasy world, sure, but it doesn't necessarily make everything right either. But my philosophy is to try to get around it as much as possible, and to try to minimize it if we can. And then, put our faith in the Lord. So, in holiness. So, it'll be what it'll be. And if it's really bad, you can always just talk about it too. And you can just make a video, talking about why it's bad. So it's not the end of the world. And you also can just separate yourself from the content. Okay, so that's some of the negative bad stuff. I guess, like, what are some of the good stuff about this too? Okay, so again, it has great storytelling. Again, I think this is something that's important. Why I'm also more okay with maybe doing a no commentary on stuff like this too, because it's just great storytelling. It doesn't always need someone else to tell the story for it. It's like you have like Lord of the Rings that came out like, I don't even know when Tolkien made Lord of the Rings. That was like 75 years ago or something. But it's like it can hold up on its own, and maybe like a little touch of a hand here or there for like storytelling, but it can just be like a no commentary. So yeah, like it tells a lot of different characters and like a big conflict. You got like, I mean, again, this is gonna be a very minimal spoiler. And there's going to be some early stuff, like some very obvious stuff. So if you've watched like even if you watch like my little intro episode 1 video, or you get just far enough into the game, like probably an hour's worth of footage, just some of the basic stuff that gives you. So, I mean, again, there's going to be minimum spoilers, but just a little bit here and there. So maybe at this point, you might also just want to watch, like, it's not going to like ruin your experience. You might just want to watch a little bit of the beginning if you don't want to hear this. So, it has like, the big bad boss. So, although I'm not even 100% certain. I mean, again, like, so one thing about the storytelling is that it's really good, but the only disadvantage to the storytelling is this: it's highly predictable. Like, if you're an expert RPG player or something, you kind of know the story. You kind of know where it's gonna go. They might throw a twist in your face every once in a while, but it's a very safe, very vanilla, very like mainline, streamlined like story. Like, you kind of know what's gonna happen, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you make a really great story based off of stuff that's already existed, it's like, sure, it's kind of the same. It's like very vanilla, but if you're making like they had The Witcher 3, and they made a clone version of The Witcher 3 from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. To tell you the truth, if you make a clone version of like one of the best games that exists, and you make your own, I mean, you do some tweaks here and there, you still have one of the best games. Your game is going to be just like one of the best games. So even though it might be similar, a similar version, if you have like a 9 out of 10, right, and you make a similar version of like a 9 out of 10, your game's arguably also going to be like a 9 out of 10. so, and the same thing, like this game is very like and that's not a clone, but it's like an example of like a really good Fire Emblem game. And if you take like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 Fire Emblem game, and you make your own version of it, although I do feel like this game is a strong combination of Fire Emblem plus The Witcher Thronebreaker, both of which, by the way, are 2 of my favorite games. So, Gwent Thronebreaker is a really good game. And if you take a couple, like you take like one of the classic Fire Emblem games, on like like the, what do you call it, how old is this? Like how old of a man am I now? You got like the oh yeah, I gotta think of the name, like the Nintendo, what's it called, the Game Boy Advance. Or you take a couple of those old, like maybe somewhere between like, there's a couple of like the couple of the really good Fire Emblem games, And this game represents those types of games. So it's like, yeah, it's a combination of both Thronebreaker and like maybe some of the classics. If you make a clone version of like an 8 to a 9 out of 10, and your game is just like those, I mean, to tell you the truth, you basically have an 8 or a 9 out of 10 also. It's just it's a slightly different version, which I really appreciate. I know that analogy or whatever is probably a long-winded way of saying it, but yeah, like, again, so far I'm really enjoying it. And okay, so yeah, I'm gonna go back a little bit to the plot. But this is just like the beginning plot. So there's like some evil, supernatural, dark force that's coming into the world, probably even like the devil, that's like possessing or taking control, or it's strongly influencing a specific individual who's trying to take over the world. He believes that, he thinks he's like some false quote unquote god, almost like the Antichrist, gonna come to take over the world, and he wants to rule the whole world. So he stabs one of the major leaders of the countries in the world that he serves in the back, and he basically betrays her. And then this queen, I'm not, again, some of the story is not, it's very, they give you like the core bare minimum that you need. They don't give you all the details, which I think is very, that's a good way of telling a story. And then she has a son, and she takes her most loyal soldier or her guard, or probably like her best friend. She has that man takes her son, and he and that as like a knight rider flees from the kingdom to go to some island, and then she stays behind to protect her son, which is, it's very noble. It's a very righteous ending. And then this guy, possessed by some dark power, again, hence the name. I mean, obviously, I haven't gotten that far into the game. I mean, I'm not gonna reveal all of my insight to what I see the story is gonna happen, but it's pretty predictable. The game's called it's called Unicorn Overlord. So basically, Overlord's like some big bad dark enemy, and then the unicorn is like, again, it's a fantasy world. Like, as a Christian, we worship God. It's basically like in holiness, we worship the Lord. They have like some unicorns, like it's like some pure and holy, almost like a deity. It's like some spiritual being of like light. It's like Team Light versus Team Darkness. So you have like the unicorns, like the good guys team, and like the overlords, the bad guys. So the name of the game, it sounds a little cheesy, but it makes a lot of logical sense. So again, you have some evil devil-like being, and then obviously he kills your mother, and then you flee to the island, and he takes over the whole world. They do a fast forward. He builds a big army up. He just slaughters everyone, all of his competition, then he just takes over. So, and then, obviously then you have like, your intro story. You have to have it has a great plot. It does classics. It does a classic job. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And then you have to have a reason for why, the story exists. So you're basically gonna, obviously this is very minimum spoilers, but you gather some forces. You try to take back the land, go through the world, try to slay the enemy bosses or whatever. Try to free you lead some liberation team. You try to eventually it's just like Fire Emblem. If you know Fire Emblem, you probably know this game. Yeah, Thronebreaker and Fire Emblem combined together. And both games I love. So, now this is subjectively my opinion, but I think I love both of those games. And then obviously you level up and gain a lot of strength. You have some base level allies, and you go throughout the land. You unlock a bunch of you get a whole bunch of friends, and you also get a whole bunch of allies. You can recruit units, and you try to build up your own base, build up your resources. Level up, get better equipment, then slowly. It's kind of like a turn-based map. and you want to go through the map, and you also get to walk around the map. And then you want to systematically take back the world. Obviously, there's a big story, and there's a lot of fun to be had, and probably some hard challenges. You probably want to take over each. There's like 5 or 6 regions. You go to each region, you meet some people, you have some fun, you learn some new story. At some point, the game's plot's gonna reveal why everything is the way it is, right? It's a lot of fun. And I always love learning a new story. Yeah, and I'm sure each map probably has one big mini boss and like one big final boss. And maybe I haven't got that far. I'm still on the first map. I've basically just gotten to the point where I've almost unlocked all of the different classes I have available. Probably to the point, honestly, where the demo would be ending. But there is also a demo for the game. Yeah, so they give you a bunch of side stuff, and they introduce you to all the characters, and I'm not sure there's an infinite number of supplies, but the game is pretty generous. But it could, you gotta be smart with your resources, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty generous at the same time. Yeah, so you also have you have like one unit worth of like a class that you play, and you can have you have 6 different slots, and each one of your heroes goes into this like unit slot, and you have 3 in the back and 3 in the front. This game also represents another game I played. Well, I wasn't that fond of it. It's also it is kind of like that game too. I have to double check the name of the game, but okay, I thought I knew the name. Okay, it's called this game. I'm not sure if it's made by the same people, but I'm gonna be real. It's very strongly just like that game. Also, it's called Grand Kingdoms. All right, I'll try to say it again. Grand Kingdoms. Yeah, this game is heavily just like that game. Now I have to check to see who the publisher of that game is. It's strongly related. So yeah, like you have you have 3 heroes in the back, 3 heroes in the front. Now you also you can unlock like the big unit slot. You have one hero you assign as your leader. Or you can put them in like a formation. And then that's like and then that's a unit. And then eventually you can unlock more slots with some more characters. And I'm not sure if there's a minimum. I'm not sure if there's a maximum of how many heroes. Like, it basically becomes like a hero. And so you can put you can put your knights, and you can put your horsemen, like a Pegasus rider with like a priest and a sword hero. You can mix or match. You can try to make them all pure. You can make like a pure blood build. You can mix or match, and then when you go into battle, both sides will fight each other. So and then obviously your heroes can take damage, and they can fall in battle, and you can try to restore them. You can also use items and stuff. But yeah, again, there are fantasy aspects. So there's also there's griffins, and I think there's probably they call them Pegasus. It's kind of ironic, right? I'm playing a Pegasus here on with Magic the Gathering. I do like this deck though a lot. It's almost like a modern deck. It's like a solid modern deck probably. Yeah, they have Pegasus, or we call them Falcon, or Falcons and Pegasus, or they have we call them Griffins, or yeah, they have a whole bunch of different flying type of characters with different mounts. They have a whole bunch of different melee classes. Obviously, I don't support magic, but they have a bunch of magic. They also have priests. Again, I'm not far enough into the game to fully know everything they offer. I mean, I think they have and they have all what we call all the run-of-the-mill Fire Emblem stuff. They have the thief class, they have horseback riders, and then they also have the advanced classes. I don't know how that works yet. I know that the character that you start out the game with, the guy who took you away from who saved your life, right, and who's a loyal a loyal knight to your mother. He is an upgraded level class, and he's kind of maxed out almost. So you gotta be careful with your experience with that guy, but so he's a second level class. So I think he's like called like a knight. You normally have like a horseback rider, just like in Fire Emblem. So I'm sure all the classes can be upgraded to a higher level tier, and I'm not sure how far this goes. There might be multiple tier upgrade levels. There also might not be. And it's like, no, they have like a gladiator class. They have like a, I don't even, they have a whole bunch of extra classes. I think there's like maybe like a pirate style class, or I'd have to look it up online, but there's quite a few classes. Okay, they have like and they have like the fighter class. You have like like an axe. You have like a soldier class. I think you have like a shield and like a lance. And then now obviously, they have like the Lord class, which the main character is a Lord, just like in Fire Emblem. Obviously in Homies we worship the Lord, and usually, biblically speaking, you have a Lord over a kingdom, and even biblically it's called the Lord's your king, represents like the ruler of your kingdom. In Holiness, then you have like the Lord's your God, representing God himself. So you have the Lord class, which generally you're probably like uber OP, being like the leader of the, you're the main protagonist, so you're kind of OP. As far as I can tell, it doesn't have like weapon and like armor degrading, so that's kind of nice. It's not a 1-for-1 clone of Fire Emblem, but it's very similar. So yeah, there's just tons and tons and tons of mix and match, kind of whatever makes you happy, right? And you can mix and match the troops, so you can have like, you could have like three three soldiers in the front, and you could have like three priests in the back or something. You could have, or you could have like you could have your main hero class be like the Lord with like maybe two big heavy defense guys or something. And you can play like whatever you want to do, right? Or you can just make like one class have like, you also could have one class have like 6 flying Pegasus. So you could have like a flying unit. So, or you could have just like one cavalry unit. Like the cavalry units they move very, very fast. They have high amounts of speed. So it's all about kind of whatever tickles your fancy, right? So it's somewhat addictive, and then you get to walk around the world map after you're done. So there's no real pressure, and you can buy better gear and stuff, and you can upgrade your little towns, and so yeah, as long as you're being somewhat smart with your resources, you should be fine. I don't know if there's an infinite amount, but the game is pretty generous. So yeah, I guess those are just some of my thoughts about the game. Yeah, so again, I personally think I would recommend the game just because it's a really great game. It has I guess some of the things I would say, again, like it has a great story, but the downside is it's a little bit predictable. And again, it has it's just an overall like versatility it's like a very overall it's just an overall great video game. It's a great experience, and you have like the heroes fighting against the villains. It seems like it's mostly a pretty clean, like more neutral, honorable series. I personally recommend you don't play the witches. Maybe you could use like one class for like the mages, just so you could have it you could put some in a formation. You could put like a half of them in a formation or something. You can also use the priests. just so you can get around the heavy armored. But, and there's also, again, obviously there's a bunch of side stuff you can do. Yeah, I guess, like, great storytelling. It's also just very, very fun. It's also voice acting. It's English voice acting. I mean, I might make my own walkthrough in Holiness if God is willing. We'll see what happens with that. But I had the first episode up at least. But yeah, I mean, overall, I personally think it's well worth it, and it's a solid game. I think it costs like maybe, and if you can get it on sale, I think it's like they had a sale where I think I bought the special edition for like $50. You could probably get the normal game on sale for like $20, $30, or you might, or it's like $60 or something. They have the PS5 version. I mean, I definitely say it's definitely a game that I would say I highly recommend you would buy or play if you like the games I mentioned. If you like Thronebreaker, and if you like the more classical or just really good high-end Fire Emblem games. And there's also a game called Grand Kingdoms you can look up. You probably never heard of it. It's a little bit like that one too. I don't like that game that much. I kind of like the game a little bit. It's kind of a janky game. But yeah, I don't always give a number rating. I definitely would say this is probably like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It's definitely worth its money. It's worth, I mean, there's also a demo. I recommend just download the demo and just play the demo. Or just watch my first episode, or go online and watch a different review, or just look at some of the combat, and just give it a little bit of a chance. It's a little bit of a slow burn to start out with. You might need to ease yourself into the game just to understand a little bit more. It's a slow pace. It's a little bit of a slow pace to start with at least. So you might not be super happy with some of the combat initially. It might take a good hour or two to kind of understand it a little bit more. But it's a pretty simple game. It's simple, but also really great at the same time. So yeah. Again, overall, I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great game. And again, it's I know I said this a couple times. Again, a great game. So the positives is a great game. It's based off of great series. It has it's an overall great vanilla game. The drawbacks are, since it's more classical, it's a classic game. It's not going to necessarily be as modernized in some sense, and it's a little bit predictable. It's not always super innovative in a sense. It's even when you play an RPG game, you got Divinity Original Sin, or Pillars of Eternity, or even Wasteland 2 or something. You get kind of a feel for the story. Yeah, it's slow paced. It's a very normal game. It doesn't seem it's not overly trying to provoke people, or it doesn't take a lot of when I say modern, it's not a modern game where it's not trying to push some agenda or narrative. It's just a great game with a great story. It doesn't have some modern day issues constantly shoved down your throat. It's just a very classical kind of game. So yeah, I'd recommend it. But yeah, I guess let me know in the comment section what you think about the game, or what you would maybe want me to do for my walkthrough, or whatever your opinions are. And again, obviously, with whatever games you play, glorify God with it. I do think you can learn a lot of Christian messages, or just human messages, from great storytelling. Again, as I would say, I'm trying to build this into more of a community. feel free to let me know. Let me know your thoughts, but try to be more civil. Try not to be toxic or hostile. Just try to be more neutral, or try to be more try to be more benevolent with your words. So, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are about, or also if you played this game, let me know what you thought about it so far. And yeah, just have a good day. Thanks for watching.